What's up, YouTube people? Long time no talk. That's too much. It's too much. Bring it down. Bring it down. Back to level 5, 3, 2, 1. Spring practice is over. Spring game is over. The Matt Rhule experiment has finally officially begun. Everything that's been coming out of the whole Matt Rhule world and everything that's being reported about it is glowing in reviews. Everybody here, including me, has been skeptical and dubious about everything that has to do with Matt Rhule. When he was hired, it seemed like a very underwhelming choice, but come to find out, it's not a bad hire so far. It's been fun to pay attention to some of the subtleties from what you hear and what you see behind the mic, how they speak, attitude, who they've reached out to, what players they find fascinating and intrigue them versus the old coaching staff that didn't find certain players as intriguing. All those things are telling in terms of the type of coach and intention and vision that he has. Isn't it ironic that an outsider, Pennsylvania guy, much more of a fit for Nebraska, a Nebraska native son?
And so what's the best way to honor that? It's to obviously respect and keep up the traditions that matter. My first coaching job was at Albright College, Division III college, and what the defense were. They all wore black shirts. They wore black jerseys because that was what college football was. My wife was the dietitian coach at Temple University. She worked with all the students, and so who'd she go study? She went to study in Nebraska. Talk about strength and training, and there's just been such an impact on us. When you think about what is his greatest impacts, is that he was the forerunner of most of the things that we do today.
I'm an idiot. I was on Coach Frost's, Scott Frost's dick the entire time. Dunce cap, right here. Dunce cap. You think a guy that played under legendary coach Tom Osborne, that has played under numerous legendary NFL coaches, associated with other coaches, etc., coming back to Nebraska, you would think he would stay a traditionalist. You wouldn't think that what he learned under Chip Kelly on the West Coast would completely infect his whole psychology of how to coach a football team. Resistance to be a traditionalist, you know, living in Nebraska and trying to do everything his own way, and how he believes the systems that he was trained under would work there, and obviously it didn't. I equate it to, honestly, kind of me. You know, I was born in Nebraska, raised up on a ranch in the northwest part of the state until I was about 10, 11, and then moved to the West Coast. I've moved back once, lived in Lincoln for about 3 years. We appreciate Nebraska, but he doesn't want to be in the fishbowl, and I don't blame him, you know. When I was living in Lincoln, I wasn't even trying to pay attention to Nebraska just because it was in your face all the time. Living on the West Coast and now living on the East Coast, I pay attention to Nebraska like none other. Going back to the Scott Frost thing, I am eating crow. I was 100% wrong. He doesn't want to be in the limelight. He doesn't really, honestly, he doesn't want to live in Nebraska. You can tell that. He's not necessarily a grinder. He kind of wants his free time. I don't think he's a head coach, and he'll be a great assistant somewhere, you know. Moving on. Matt Rhule is coming in and 100% is doing everything. It's almost like he is taking Tom Osborne's playbook and literally he's putting his own little flavor to it, but he is doing absolutely everything that they did, and doing it with a youthful vigor. I equate it to like a real estate agent. A really good real estate agent builds those relationships with all his clients. Even if a client is not going to buy from you, you still maintain those relationships. That's awesome to see, in the sense that it blew me away when, like, say for example, Ainsworth, Nebraska, which is where my dad used to coach and teach. Small area. They go to Ainsworth. Every little small one-horse town, whether it be Scotts Bluff, whether it be Hyannis, whether it be Ainsworth. And not only are they going to these schools, they are building relationships to continually go back to, whether they have a good player or not.
And the other thing that they've tried to do is establish good relations in the state. We were out every Friday night, and we were in every high school. And you don't want to just show up in high school when somebody has a great player. You want to be there every year. And I think some of that's been missing in recent years.
That speaks volumes, respective to the tradition, respective the area. You're 11-man teams, but going to the 8-man schools. You know, what was it? I played in Hyannis for one year, and 8-man football. That appreciation of what Nebraska provides is really eye-opening. I wouldn't have expected anything like that in terms of their attitudes. Matt Rhule's willingness to reach out to Frank Solich on a regular basis, reach out to Tom Osborne on a regular basis, and it resonate. Say he appreciates it when he listens to Coach Osborne explain how he did his routines, and Matt Rhule is just not shaking his head like, yeah. He's doing it. Every little detail, from how they have their jerseys on, specifics in blocking schemes, paying homage to the I formation and how they're going to utilize the fullback. You saw that a little bit in the spring game. How much film he watched and his coaches watched of those 90s teams, those 90s Nebraska teams, and how much he paid attention to the ahead of their time, the blocking schemes, the uniqueness of what the quarterbacks were doing and how free they were to work, the physicality, the meanness.
When you watch, I spent a lot of time watching TV copies of those teams in the 90s, and you're going to watch a zone play, and then you're going to see a ISO, and then you're going to see an option play, and then you're going to see a one-back zone, and then you're going to see a quarterback trap, which I've never seen before, and then you're going to see a lot of different football. The football was so innovative, and it's easy to say, well, we just lined up and ran the ball. There was such nuance and such detail, and you see Tommy, Frazier, and all those quarterbacks coach at the line calling the game. Like everyone's afraid to do that nowadays, but you had them up there and they're audibling and getting us in the right place. So to me, the spirit of Nebraska is that for so many years, Coach Osborne had it where they were the forerunners of everything, off the field and on the field. And so how do you respect that? And you come here and you say, hey, what are the best advantages we can give our student athletes on and off the field? What are the best ways for training, for recovery? What are the best ways for equipment? What are the best things that we can do academically, life skills wise? That's in my opinion, the true tradition of Nebraska, is to be the best on and off the field, and then let the scoreboard take care of itself.
You can't not help but get goosebumps when you think about that. Anyway, my point is, eating crow again, because I wasn't on Matt Rhule's. I didn't understand the hire. The more I paid attention and did a little research on him, I could see the potential and why Trev Alberts hired him. I understood it. I was like, okay, this kind of makes sense, but it's still underwhelming. But seeing how hard they're working on the recruiting line, their appreciation of Nebraska tradition, how much they're welcoming old school players, how much they're still going to be adhering to the walk-on program, etc., etc., you can't help but just be excited about this. The only thing that I'm still on the fence about with Matt Rhule is I'm still not sold long-term guy. You know what I mean? He doesn't have the history of staying at a place very longer than 3 or 4 years. Especially if Nebraska is successful early, I give him 5 years max.
But I do think Nebraska's fan base is second to none out there.
No, that much I've seen, and but I like the place. And you take over a new team, you never know what they're going to be like. This is a really good group of guys too. Like they want to win, and I look back at this season. It could have gone any which way. You guys have been in teams where things don't go the way you want them. They battled, and to beat Iowa at the end of the year, they showed some grit and some toughness, and there's a lot of guys there that really, really love Nebraska. So I'm anxious to get started for them and do the best I can for them.
This team's going to be competitive, guys. They are forcing these guys to be so much more disciplined than what we've seen the last 4 years. I'm sorry, this Nebraska team has been good enough to win 7 games, if not 8 games, 6 to 8 games these past 2 years. They have been good enough to do that. They just weren't practicing discipline. Super air, frogs water ass tight discipline. This coaching staff definitely appears that that's the case. They are 100%, everything is buttoned up, everything is attention to detail, everything from how you tie your shoes to how you put your jersey on. Everything is buttoned up. And he's obviously shown in his other schools or whatever that discipline, tenacity is 100% what they look for, and we saw glimpses of that. And when he says that this team is miles ahead of those other 2 schools, Baylor and Temple, that this team is arguably second year starting, when he was first year, second year, third year in Temple and Baylor, these guys are already way far ahead. They're already in their second year. If they're already in their second year, that tells me that they can be better than a 7-6. And the schedule works out for that. The schedule is actually not that hard of a schedule. It's not a bear of a schedule like it was in 2021. At the end of the day, I like what I saw at the spring game, and I've changed my opinion completely about Matt Rhule. I still sit on the fence. I don't know if he's a long-term guy. I would love to see the guy around, assuming he succeeds. I would love to see him around for the long term, because that's what I wanted going into this coaching hire, was a long-term hire. And I think at the end of the day, that's what I was the most disappointed about, was I didn't believe this guy, Matt Rhule, was going to be a long-term hire. I'm still not sold on that, but I think everything else I love. I adore this guy. Love everything about this guy. I love how he's embraced everything that is Nebraska, from all of its history all the way up till now, how he treats the entire state, the coaches, the local coaches, everything. I love it all. I love it all. It's hard not to like the guy. So if he succeeds, let's hope he stays longer than 3 or 4 years. Anyway, I haven't talked to you guys for a while. Good to see you. Go Big Red.